Daf Mem Gimel Amud Beis, 3 lines from the top. We're in the middle of the sugya discussing Rav Yitzchak Shita that he holds Ein Kli Nitel El Tzorach Dover HaNitel. You can only carry something which a vessel, even if the Kli itself is not muksa. Even if it's permitted to carry it, but it can only be carried for the purpose of something which is also not muksa. It cannot be carried, it cannot be metaltalit for the purpose of something which is muksa, and it doesn't make a difference if there is a loss involved. It's something that's mitsuya, it's a hefsed that's mitsuya, commonplace or not commonplace, it doesn't make a difference. A kli is only nitol l'tzorach davar hanitol. And we asked the kasha that the Brisa says that you can spread a machzeles on a beehive to protect it from the sun and from the rain, as long as as long as you don't have intent, you're not trapping the bees. Now the bees are muksa, and how could you be metaltal machzeles for the purpose of protecting the bees? So the more answers, we're talking where there's honey, and you're protecting it for the purpose of the honey, which is not muksa. So the Gemara asks, that's fine in the summertime, but in the Masechet Shabbat, there's no honey. So therefore, how can you be metaltalit? Aren't you being metaltalit for the bees, which are muksa? So the Gemara says, lo isen shtei chalas. There's always remaining 2 chalas on the honeycomb for the bees, for the food to nourish the bees. And for those 2 chalas dvash, those 2, that's why he's spreading it to protect them, and that's not something which is muksa. In fact, they are muksas ninu. They are muksas because they're set aside for the bees, for the food for the bees, not to take for the human consumption. So therefore, it's for the purpose of the bees. They're also muksa. The more answers the chashvalayim. We're talking in a particular case where he has intent that he is going to use those 2 chalas dvash, and therefore they're for human consumption, and it's not muksa, and the matzelis is for the purpose of those 2 chalas dvash. In fact, the Gemara haloi chashav, you mean to say if he did not have specific intent, it would be also it's also if that's the case. How the time of is kavan lotzud? You tell me kavan lotzud liflik v'lisne b'didah. Why aren't you mechalik in it itself? Also, why are we going to and jumping to another issue? Why are we saying, well, if it's mutter, so long as it does not, there's no isser of tzeda, of hunting, of trapping involved? Why don't we stay with the isser of muksa and say it's only permitted, and that's if he had specific intent? But if he didn't have specific intent, then these 2 chalas dvash would be muksa, and then it's also. Apparently, from the fact that the Brisa goes and jumps to a case of tzeda, it would seem to imply that as far as muksa goes, there's no chiluk. We cannot differentiate. Well, if you're telling me this is only mutter, the machzelis is only mutter because ein kli nitel nit is only mutter if he's chishav, he has specific intent for these 2 chalas dvash. Why don't you differentiate even the halachas of muksa and say it's only mutter if he had intent, if he had specific intent, but otherwise it would be also because these 2 chalas are muksa and ein kli nitel tzorach davar nitel. More answers. It's telling even if he did have a specific intent, but still there is another consideration, even if he did have specific intent, so there's no muksa consideration, but there is a tzeda consideration, and therefore you have to make sure that there's no tzeda. Taisus asked the question, even in chashiv aleim, even if he had intent for these 2 chalas dvash, but Redias is also in any event. It's also to remove the honeycombs from the beehive. That in itself is an Isser D'Rabbanan. So even if he had intent, it still would be also, and it's still a Davar Muksa. So Taisa says we have to be talking in this case where not only he had intent for these 2 chalas, but they were also detached from the honey, from the beehive. They were detached already miba'id yoyim. So there's no Isser Redia involved in it because it was already detached. And they're just munachas, they're reduis umunachas in the kaveras. Frank the Gemara. So you're saying that it's chishav aleim, that he had intent for these two halas dvash, but so long it's only mutter, as long as he lo shalois chavin lotzu. Frank the Gemara man. Who is the Tana? Rav Shimon leslei muksa. If it's going according to Rav Shimon, so he's mekel and muksa, and he would not consider the two halas dvash to be muksa even without chishav aleim. Rav Shimon would not hold of muksa in this case by the two halas dvash, even though they're there for the bees, but he wasn't makatzit biyadayim, and even without chishav, there's still always a potential that it could be used for human consumption. And therefore, according to Rav Shimon, it would not be considered muksa even without chishav aleim. So this that you're setting on, you're saying the case is chishav aleim, l'chayr can't be going according to Rav Shimon. According to Rav Shimon, you don't have to come on to that. It's not muksa anyway. And Rav Yehuda, and if we're going according to Rav Yehuda, and therefore he would consider these two chalas to be muksa, and that's why you need a specific kavana. You have to be chishav aleim, but kiloi miskaven ma'havi. Well, you're telling me that it would be mutter so long as it's not miskaven to do tzeda, to trap the bees. Well, why does that help? What does that accomplish? Even if he's not miskaven, davar shein miskaven also, or Rabbi Yehuda holds that davar shein miskaven is also. So even if he's not miskaven to trap the bees, it's still also. Our answer is loyal Rabbi Yehuda. We're going according to Rabbi Yehuda, and that's why you have to have specific kavana for these two halas dvash. What does it mean when he says he does not intend to? He doesn't have intent to trap the bees. It means that he should not make it in a way that it is a trap, that the bees are trapped. The lishvak la ravcha, he has to leave enough space. He has to leave enough space so that they're not considered trapped. So that's what it means. It's not totally on the kavona. It means the maisa. He can spread the marcellus over the beehive, but he has to leave a large enough opening so that the bees are not considered trapped, that they can easily come out and get out of the beehive. Now, Rav Shimon is also moida that you cannot spread the marcellus on the beehive where they will inevitably be trapped. He's moida if it's a psik reisha. So what is the difference? Why we're saying it's according to Rav Yehuda, ubilvad shlois kaven lotzud, that the lishkavlei ravcha. So they're showing to speak out that according to Rav Yehuda, you need a larger space. According to Rav Shimon, it can't be a psik reisha. It can't be inevitable. Meaning, as long as there is an opening that's large enough that a bee theoretically could get out, even though it's unlikely that it would, that's considered not a psik reisha, and therefore, if it's a davar shein miskaven, it would be mutter. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, you need a larger space. That it's something that's not considered, it doesn't constitute seda, it's a larger space that the bee could get out even more easily and more readily, and there's more likely, more of a chance that he will get out. So that's one approach. So this approach is going that it's talking in the winter time, there's no honey, but there's the two chalas dvash, and if he is machashiv, he has intent for those two chalas dvash, they're not muksa, and therefore he can spread the marcellus on the beehive as long as he does not do it seder. Rav Ashi Amar, he says, it doesn't say in the summer and in the winter. It says, on account of the rain, on account of the sun. But we're not talking in the winter. When are we talking? It's B'yom Nisan, B'yom Tishrei. It's talking on Nisan and Tishrei, when the seasons are changing. De'ike chama, ve'ike geshamim, ve'ike dvash, where there's both sun and rain, and there's also honey. So we don't have to be talking about these two chalas dvash, and he had specific intent. We're talking in Nisan and Tishrei, where there's possibly sun, there's possibly rain, but there's honey as well. And so therefore, the marcellus being nittal on account of the beehive that has honey. So it's not muksa. It's not for a davar ein and nittal. It's for a davar and nittal. Amr Rav Sheshes, Pukav, Amr Rav Yitzchak. He said, go tell Rav Yitzchak, Kfar Tergam, Rav Huna, L'shmayt Chababavel. He says that your halacha, what you said, that a ein kli nittal el tzorach davar ha-nittal, you can only take something, even if it's not muksa, it can only be carried for the purpose of something which is not muksa. That's what they in Bavel, they paskined like you. Damar Rahuna, oisen mechitza lemeis b'shvil chaim. You can make a mechitza for the maize if it's for the benefit of a living person. A living person is not muksa. A mace is muksa. So to make this mechitza, it can be done if it's for the purposes of the chai as well. But if it's only for the purpose of the mes, then the mes is muksa, you can't do it. Ein kli nittel, el tzorach davar nittel, cannot be taken for something which is muksa. V'nais mechitza l'mes b'shil mes. Mahi, what's an example? What are we talking about? The Omar of Shmuel bar Yehuda v'chein Tana shel Amari meis hamutal b'chama. If the mace is mutal b'chama, it's not covered brias that the mace should be lying out in the sun. Boim shnei b'nei adam, two people come, yeshem b'tzira, and they sit on the side of the mace. Cham lahem mil mata. Now they sit there now to the point where it's uncomfortable, it's hot on the ground where they're sitting. And Azem maybe mita v'yeshavela, Azem maybe mita v'yeshavela, and each one brings a bed and sits on it, and therefore the bed is brought for the purpose of the chai, the living person. Chamla milmala. Now they're sitting on the sun, and if it gets hot for them on top, mivim marceles, they bring a mat uparson malayim, and they spread it over them. And then after that, one of them lifts up the bed that he's sitting on and lifts it upright, so it's now a wall, and the machzeles that he's holding now rests on that bed, on the side of the bed. And then the other one does the same thing. And it comes out now that you have an awning covering the mess that's made on its own. So there's really two considerations over here. One is that ein clean nittel tzorach davar nittel. So therefore, the machzeles has to be brought out for the purpose of the living people, to give them shade. So initially, it has to be brought out for them. It can't be brought out only for the mess, because ein clean nittel tzorach davar nittel. The other consideration is that you can't make a mechitza, even an oil arai, even a temporary one, in the normal manner. Making an oil, making a tent, covering an awning, is being boina. Now, even if it's temporary, it's still also midrabanan. It has to be done in a not the normal manner. So what do here? Each one brings a bed, and they sit on the bed. So the bed that they brought is for the purposes of themselves. Then they are hot, so they bring machzeles and they hold it over their heads to give them protection. So now everything is being carried out for the purpose of the chai, ador hanito. Then they each lift up the side of the bed, and now then the awning, the machzeles, is resting on the side of the bed, and now you have a makeshift awning that's made on its own. So it's an all arai. It's also done in an unusual way, because first they spread the machzeles and then they lift up the sides of the bed. Normally when you build the walls and then the roof. Here they put up the roof first, the machzeles, and then the sides of the bed. So it's an all arai that it's done kalachar yad, and that's why it's mutter. And the kli is nittel for the purpose of the chai initially, so you don't have the problem of ein kli nittel le'el tzorach davar hanittel. Taisus wonders, why do they have to first sit on the ground and get hot and then bring out the bed? Well, bring out the bed to sit on, that's for the purpose of the chai initially anyway, even without sitting on the ground and getting hot and then bringing out the bed. Why can't they just bring out the bed to begin with and sit on the bed? It's for the purpose of the chai. Taisus says, because we have to have a heker, it has to be clear that this is l'tzorach chai, that the chai is getting benefit from it. So first he sits on the ground, it's hot, he brings out the bed, so this clearly demonstrates that it's for the purpose of the living person, because it's too hot to sit on the ground. And then he sits on it, and then they put a machzeles on top. Itmar meis hamutal b'chama. So we're discussing the mace that's mutal b'chama. Rabbi Yehuda Mar Shmuel hayfcha mimita lamita. He says he can tilt it from one bed to the other. That's how you can move it from one bed to the other. Seems to be machlokes rishonim. Doesn't mean that he can actually be metaltal the mace and move it, shift it from one bed to another, or does it mean only by way of the mita he turns it over from one mita to another? But I'll call upon him in any event, it's considered tiltul min hadsad. So that's the possible reason why this would be mutter. The mess is muksa, but he's metavcha mimita lamita. Rav Huna bar Shalma mishmid Rav Amar maniach alav kikar atinak. You can put on it a dover that is not muksa, like a loaf of bread or a tinak, and then you can carry it directly, not just being haifcha from one to the other, not just tiltum and asad. Then asad you can do it directly. Now, even though this is normally not mutter, a dover muksa, even if you put on it a dover which is not muksa on top of it, you can't carry the dover muksa. But mishum kavod hames, that we allowed it in this manner, that if he puts a kikar atinuk or something which is not muksa on it, then we allow you to carry the mess directly. So the Gemara says, "Hey, chadika kikar atinik." When you have a kikar atinik, kol yalma leif pligi the shori, everyone is minded that it's mutter. It's mutter in that manner. Keep pligi the leslie. The machlekes is if he does not have something which is not muksa to put on top of it. Mar savar tiltum l'netzad shmei tiltum. One holds that even though he's doing it indirectly, he's haifcha from mita l'mita. It's a tiltum l'netzad. He holds it's still called tiltum, and therefore it's also Mar savar lo shmei tiltum. One holds no, it's not called tiltum, and therefore you can do it in that manner. Let's say this is a machlekes tanoi, because we learned you are not allowed to remove the mace if there's a fire on Shabbos. You're not allowed to remove him on account of the fire. Amud Yomi Masechet says, I heard that it is mutter to save the mace, to remove the mace from the fire. What's the case? If there is a kikar atinik that one can put on the mace and carry him out that way, my tama the Tanakama. Why should the Tanakama say it's also everyone would be minded that it's mutter? And if there's not, my tama the Rav Yehuda ben Lakish, why does he say it's mutter? Elalah must be the tiltum and atzad pligi, must be the machlekes tiltum and atzad, the marsav tiltum and atzad shmei tiltum, marsav loish shmei tiltum. Is this not the machlekes? This is the machlekes. There's no kikar atinik, and it's in mutter tiltum and atzad. Where is it like the kuli alma tiltum and atzad shmei tiltum? No, really, I'll tell you that tiltum. They both agree that tiltum and atzad shmei tiltum. And if not for the fact that it's a fire, if it would be not for the fire, if there's no kikar or tinuk, you would not be able to metaltal it. You would not be able to be haifla mita. Perhaps that's what they hold. Time the Rav Yehuda ben Lakish. So why does Rav Yehuda ben Lakish say it's mutter in this case? If there's no kikar or tinuk, and if he does hold that tiltum and it's such made tiltum, why is it mutter in this case of the fire? Because mitoyach shodam bol al meisai, since a person is very nervous and agitated and he'll panic because the mace is in the fire, we're afraid we're afraid that if you don't give him a manner if you don't say it's mutter, if you don't allow him to do this, it's true that he's carrying out the muksa, but the consequences might be more severe. He might put out the fire in his panic. So therefore we made a special dispensation and we said it's mutter. Amar Yehuda ben Shil, Amar Avasi, Amar Yechon, Halacha, Yehuda ben Lakish b'meis. It says in this case of the meis, that is the halacha, like Yehuda ben Lakish, that it's mutter.